Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Let us begin by settling into this moment together. Find a comfortable position, and allow your breath to find its own natural rhythm. In and out. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do, except to listen. Imagine, if you will, a single leaf floating on the surface of a wide, slow-moving river. The leaf does not struggle against the current. It does not attempt to steer itself toward a specific bank. It simply floats, turning gently when the water turns, resting in eddies, moving again when the flow resumes. The leaf understands something fundamental: it is on the river, not against it. Our lives are often like this. We forget we are the leaf, and instead, we exhaust ourselves trying to be the riverbank, trying to dictate every twist and turn of the water. Tonight, we explore what happens when we remember our true place. When we learn to float, even when the current seems to carry us away from where we thought we wanted to go. When nothing in life seems to go our way, a deep and quiet frustration can set in. It feels personal, as if the universe itself has chosen to oppose our dreams. We build intricate castles of expectation: how our career should progress, how our relationships should feel, how our days should unfold. Then, when the winds of reality blow, we are often left clutching blueprints for a castle that was never there, grieving not for a loss, but for a fantasy. The Buddha taught that this very clinging, this upadana, is the root of our anguish. Life, in its essential nature, is anicca, impermanent, fluctuating, and unpredictable. It is not inherently fair or unfair, those are judgments we place upon it. The river is not fair to the leaf, it simply flows. The problem is not the river's direction, but our insistence that it flow elsewhere. I would like to share a story with you. It is not an ancient parable, but one from my own life. Several years ago, I planted a small cherry tree in my garden. I nurtured it, dreamed of its blossoms, and imagined the shade it would one day provide. One winter, a particularly fierce ice storm swept through. The next morning, I went outside to find my young tree bent nearly double to the ground, its main trunk creased and wounded by the weight of the ice. My heart sank. All that care, all that waiting, seemed ruined. I felt a sharp sense of injustice. Why my tree? Why such a brutal storm? For days, I looked at it with sorrow, already mourning its loss. But I did not cut it down. Almost without hope, I staked it, supporting its bent form. Seasons passed. That crease in the trunk never straightened. Instead, it grew into a pronounced, graceful curve. Today, that tree is the most beautiful one in my garden. Its curve makes it unique, its blossoms seem to spill from that arc with a particular generosity. The storm was not fair. But the tree's response, to grow with its wound, to incorporate the bend into its being, created a beauty that a perfect, straight trunk could never have achieved. The storm was out of my control. The choice to support the tree, and the tree's own relentless will to grow, were within it. This is our first lesson, to look for the life that persists within the bend, not just at the force that caused it. This story leads us to the core practice we will explore, the gentle art of discernment. Before we can respond wisely to difficulty, we must learn to see it clearly, without the fog of our panic and disappointment. In the stillness of your own heart, I invite you to consider any challenge you face now. Bring it into your awareness, not as a monster, but as a simple fact. Now, we shine the lantern of mindfulness upon it, asking a question derived from the deepest wells of Buddhist wisdom: is this within the realm of my influence, or is it beyond it? All suffering can be traced to a confusion between these two realms. We waste our spirit trying to change what we cannot, and we neglect the power we do possess. The realm of our influence contains our intentions, our actions, our speech, and our responses. This is the domain of karma, the seeds we plant with our choices. If your suffering stems from a habit of mind, a careless word you spoke, a task you avoided, then you stand before a door you yourself can open. The key is in your hand. The second realm is the vast, interconnected world of conditions beyond our control, the past, the actions and thoughts of others, the unfolding of global events, accidents, illness, and loss. We stand before this realm not as carpenters, but as gardeners. We cannot command the rain, but we can choose how to tend the soil that receives it. If you are enjoying this gentle guidance, if these words feel like a soft light in a dim room, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel, Inner Guide. By subscribing, you join a community of kindred spirits on this path of understanding. You ensure that these conversations continue to reach you, offering solace and wisdom whenever you need to return to the river's edge. Your presence here is a gift. Now, let us take a deeper breath. We have begun by learning to distinguish the bend in the trunk from the life of the tree. In the next part of our journey, we will explore what to do when we discover that the difficulty truly lies within our own hands, how to tend to the garden of our own actions. But for now, simply rest with the question, in my current challenge, where does my agency truly begin and end? There is no need to force an answer. Simply let the question float, like our leaf on the river. Welcome back to this quiet space of exploration. Let us settle again into a state of gentle observation. Last time, we spoke of the leaf on the river and the bent cherry tree. We introduced the vital practice of discernment, learning to see what is within our circle of influence and what lies beyond it. Tonight, we turn our lantern inward, to the first of those two realms, the domain of our own agency. What do we do when, upon honest reflection, we see that the source of our hardship is a seed we ourselves planted? This is not a moment for self-blame, but for profound empowerment. It is the beginning of true responsibility, which in the language of Buddhism, is the very gateway to freedom. Often, when life feels unfair, there is a hidden component of our own participation. A missed opportunity we were too fearful to seize. A relationship we neglected through inattention. A project we approached with a scattered mind. The Buddha's teaching on the Noble Eightfold Path begins with right understanding and leads directly to right action. This is not about grand, sweeping gestures. It is about the quiet, cumulative power of aligning our smallest choices with wisdom and care. When we face a difficult situation born of our own doing, we are being offered a sacred chance to practice right action. We are being invited to correct our course, not because we are bad navigators, but because we have simply drifted, and the stars are still there to guide us. I knew a talented potter once, a man of few words but immense patience. He showed me his studio, filled with both glorious pieces and what he called his learning shelves, cracked bowls, lopsided vases, sculptures that collapsed in the kiln. He pointed to a particularly uneven bowl. This one, he said, I was rushing. My mind was on the next piece, not on the clay in my hands. I didn't center it properly on the wheel. The wobble was there from the very first second. He didn't throw the bowl away in disgust. He kept it. It teaches me, he said. When I feel that sense of rush, of wanting to be already at the end, I look at this bowl. It reminds me that the quality of the finished piece is inseparable from the quality of attention I give at the start. His mistake was within his control. His response, to learn from it, to keep the physical reminder, was a powerful act of right action. He changed his future work by honoring the truth of his past misstep. This is our first task when we identify a problem within our control, to meet it with clear-eyed, compassionate accountability. We must drop the story of, "Why me?" and pick up the tool of, "What now?" This requires a brave and gentle heart. It means saying, "Yes, I contributed to this. My fear, my haste, my neglect played a part." This admission is not a prison, it is a key. For if we caused part of the problem, we inherently hold the capacity to be part of the solution. The Buddha taught that we are the owners of our karma. This ownership is our greatest dignity. It means we are not helpless leaves after all, we are also the quiet, persistent force that can steer the leaf toward a calmer part of the stream. Let us practice with a specific example. Imagine you are facing financial strain. Upon discernment, you realize that while the economy, an external factor, is challenging, your own pattern of impulsive spending has deepened the crisis. The economy is the storm, your spending habits are the unsecured window in your house. You cannot stop the storm, but you can certainly repair the window. This repair is your right action. It may involve creating a budget, seeking financial counsel, or simply pausing for 10 mindful breaths before any purchase. Each small, consistent action is a stitch mending the fabric of your security. It is you, exercising the control you do have. The teachings of Buddhism guide us here with the principle of skillful means, *upaya*. We are not asked to make a single, heroic effort and then be done. We are asked to cultivate a lifestyle of continuous, small corrections. It is like tending a garden. You do not plant a seed once and demand a harvest. You water, you weed, you protect from pests, day after day. When you see a weed, a bad habit, you do not curse the sky for growing it. You simply bend down and pull it out, knowing this is the work of a gardener. The feeling of things not going your way often comes from neglecting this daily gardening of our own lives while expecting a beautiful crop. So, how do we begin this gardening? We start with the most fundamental tool, mindful awareness. Before you react in anger, pause. Before you succumb to a lazy impulse, pause. In that pause, you create a space between the stimulus and your response. In that space lies your freedom and your power to choose a different path. The Buddha said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." By becoming the watchful guardian of your thoughts and intentions, you begin to replant the garden of your experience from the root. This is deep, nurturing work. It requires us to be both the gardener and the garden, to show ourselves the same patient care we would show a vulnerable seedling. It is the opposite of harsh self-criticism, it is compassionate responsibility. As we close this part of our journey, I invite you to reflect, where in your life might you have left a window unsecured against the storm? Can you see one small, loving action you could take to begin closing it? Do not feel you must fix everything at once. Just one stitch. One mindful breath. One honest look. That is how we reclaim the territory of our own agency, turning the soil for new growth. In our next conversation, we will venture into the more spacious and challenging realm, what to do when the difficulty is truly, undeniably, beyond our control. We will learn the art of changing not the world, but our perspective within it. Until then, nurture your garden. We have been tending the inner garden, learning to pull the weeds of our own habits and water the seeds of our better intentions. But now, we turn to face a vast and often intimidating landscape, the domain of experiences that are entirely beyond our personal control. This is where our deepest frustrations often live, when we have done our gardening impeccably, and still, a frost descends. When other people act in ways that wound us. When loss visits without invitation. When the world's chaos presses at our door. Trying to change these external events is like trying to stop the wind by shouting at it. It exhausts the soul and leaves us feeling utterly powerless. So what did the Buddha advise? He pointed us toward a more subtle, more profound mastery, the mastery of our own inner climate. The core insight here is one of the most liberating in all of Buddhist thought: pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, the first arrow is the event itself. The criticism, the loss, the failure. It hits, and it hurts. That is pain. The second arrow is all we add on top of it: our rage, our resentment, our stories of unfairness, our frantic mental struggle against what has already happened. This is suffering. And this second arrow is of our own making. It is, crucially, within our control to not shoot it. When faced with a situation we cannot change, our work shifts from manipulating the external world to disarming our own internal archer. This is the practice of right view applied to adversity, seeing things as they are, without the addictive layer of our personal commentary. Let me share an original story with you, about an old bell in a mountain temple. The bell was famous for its pure, resonant tone that could be heard across the valley. One day, a violent quarrel broke out in the temple courtyard. In the tumult, the great bell was struck not with the gentle wooden log meant for it, but with a heavy iron hammer meant for breaking stone. A deep, ugly crack snaked down its side. The monks were devastated. Their beloved bell was ruined, its perfect song destroyed. They gathered, lamenting its loss. The eldest monk, after a long silence, approached the cracked bell. He took the proper wooden log and struck it once. Instead of the clear single tone, a complex, layered sound emerged. A deep hum, a softer ring, a whisper of a vibration, all woven together by the crack. It was not the old sound. It was something richer, more textured, melancholic yet profoundly peaceful. The monk said, the bell did not choose the iron hammer. That was beyond its control. But it has chosen to sing with its crack, not despite it. Its song now contains the truth of its history. Can we do the same? This story illuminates the path. The iron hammer is the external event. Cruel, unexpected, damaging. The crack is the pain. The bell's new, complex song is the perspective we can choose. We cannot magically erase the crack of loss or betrayal. But we can learn what new tones our spirit can produce when we accept that the crack is now part of our structure. We stop trying to produce the old, perfect sound and discover the wisdom note that only a heart that has been broken open can sound. The practical application of this is the cultivation of upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is not cold indifference. It is a spacious, balanced heart. It is the ability to be with life's pleasant and unpleasant winds without being blown over by them. How do we build this? We start with the breath. When you receive harsh criticism, before the mind spirals into stories of injustice, feel your feet on the ground. Take 3 breaths, just 3, focusing only on the sensation of air moving in and out. In that tiny space, you have created a buffer between the first arrow and the second. You have remembered that you are the one breathing, not the criticism itself. We practice radical acceptance. This does not mean we like what happened. It means we stop arguing with reality. Saying, "This shouldn't have happened," to a past event is a futile argument that drains our present energy. Acceptance is saying, "This did happen. It is part of the landscape now. Given that this is here, how do I proceed?" You are no longer fighting the rock in your path, you are deciding to climb over it, go around it, or perhaps sit upon it and rest. We can also practice metta, loving kindness, toward those who seem to be the source of our trouble. This is advanced, transformative work. When someone acts unfairly, silently wish them well. May you be free from anger. May you find peace. This is not for their sake, but for yours. It releases the poison of resentment from your own heart. It affirms that your inner peace is more valuable to you than your outer conflict. You are changing the perspective from, "This person is harming me," to, "I will not allow this person's actions to dictate the climate of my heart." This shift in perspective is the ultimate creative act. It is how we take the cracked bell of our experience and find its new song. It is how we turn an obstacle into a vantage point. The Buddha's authority on this matter is absolute, born from his own enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, where he faced every inner demon of fear and desire. He taught that the mind is the forerunner of all things. By mastering our perspective, by choosing the quality of our thoughts about an event, we reclaim sovereignty over our entire experience of life. So tonight, reflect on a crack in your own bell. A circumstance you truly cannot change. Can you, just for a moment, stop trying to make it disappear? Can you listen, with gentle curiosity, for what new tone your spirit might produce when it accepts this crack as part of its history? The song may surprise you with its depth. In our next part, we will weave these threads together, exploring how to walk through life with fewer expectations, and thus, with a lighter heart. Let us sink a little deeper into this gentle space of understanding. We've spoken of tending our inner garden and learning to sing with the cracks in our bell. Now, we arrive at a quiet, transformative crossroads, the art of living with fewer expectations. This is not a call to lower our standards or abandon our dreams. Rather, it is an invitation to release the tight fist of demand we often place upon life, and upon ourselves. In the serene teachings of Buddhism, expectation is seen as a subtle form of craving, a desire for life to be other than it is in this very moment. And as the Buddha taught, all suffering springs from craving. So, how do we navigate our days without the constant murmur of should and if only? We learn to walk with open hands. Imagine you are holding a handful of fine, dry sand. You want to keep every grain. You close your fist tightly, determined not to lose a single one. But what happens? The sand trickles out through the cracks between your fingers. The tighter you clench, the more you lose. Now, open your palm. Lay it flat, gently. Place the sand upon it. The sand rests there, fully present. The breeze may take a grain or two, but most remain. Your open hand is not passive, it is receptive. It holds without strangling. This is the posture of a heart with fewer expectations. It is an open palm toward life, able to receive what comes without desperately clutching at what it thinks must come. The moment we demand a specific outcome, that a person must act a certain way, that an event must unfold just so, we have closed our fist. And we feel the strain in our soul as life, like sand, begins to slip away. I recall a friend who was an avid astronomer. He would plan for weeks to view a specific meteor shower or planetary alignment. He had the best telescope, the perfect location charted out. One night, we drove for hours to a remote hilltop to see a promised shower. The sky, however, had other plans. A thick bank of clouds rolled in, obscuring everything. My friend was devastated. All that preparation, wasted. He sat in frustrated silence for a long while. Then, almost reluctantly, he looked away from the hidden sky and around at the darkened landscape. In the absence of stars, our other senses came alive. We heard the chorus of night insects, the distant call of an owl, the wind moving through the tall grass with a sound like a soft exhale. We felt the cool damp of the air. It was a completely different experience than the one he had expected, not worse, not better, simply different. Profoundly beautiful in its own right. He later told me, I went looking for fire in the sky, and found the quiet pulse of the earth instead. I wouldn't have traded it. His expectation was the closed fist. The clouds were the reality. The gift was only found when he opened his palm and received what was actually there. The Buddha's wisdom gently guides us here. He did not say, have no goals. He taught the middle way, to act with right intention, but to release attachment to the specific fruit of the action. Do your work diligently, but do not chain your happiness to a particular result. Love fully, but do not demand that love be returned in a specific manner. This practice, known as non-attachment or letting go, is the cornerstone of inner peace. It allows us to engage with life fully, passionately even, while maintaining an inner spaciousness that cannot be shattered by disappointment. It is the difference between planting a seed with care and then sitting beside it, anxiously digging it up every day to check for roots, versus planting it, watering it, and trusting the processes of sun and soil to do their work in their own time. So, how do we cultivate this open palm approach in daily life? We start with micro-practices. Begin your day not with a rigid checklist of demands, but with a gentle intention, may I meet whatever today brings with presence and grace. When you find yourself growing frustrated because traffic is slow, or a line is long, notice the expectation, this should be faster. And consciously let it go. Breathe into the space that opens up. You might even find a strange beauty in the pause you've been given. In conversations, practice listening without expecting to formulate your next response. Just listen, openly, as you would hold your palm out to the rain. This extends most importantly to our expectations of ourselves. We often carry a brutal inner taskmaster, a voice that says, I should be further along. I should be happier, more successful, more enlightened. This, too, is a closed fist, clenching around an idealized self. Buddhism encourages self-compassion, seeing yourself as you are in this moment, a being on a path, perfectly imperfect, and meeting that being with kindness, not with a list of demands. Each time you release a should, you drop a weight you didn't realize you were carrying. The beauty of walking with fewer expectations is that it turns ordinary life into a series of discoveries, not disappointments. The cancelled plan becomes an unexpected evening of solitude. The failed project becomes a lesson that redirects your path. The person who doesn't behave as you hoped becomes a teacher in patience or a mirror for your own triggers. Life ceases to be a test you are constantly failing and becomes a landscape you are exploring, with all its surprising turns and hidden vistas. As we prepare to move forward, hold this question gently: where in your life are you clenching your fist around sand? Can you feel the strain? Can you imagine, even for a moment, the relief of opening your palm? In our next session, we will explore the power of gratitude. Not as a platitude, but as a radical practice of perspective that grows naturally from this open-handed way of being. If the practice of releasing expectations is like opening a clenched fist, then the practice we explore now is like turning that open palm upward to feel the sun. It is the natural, radiant companion to non-attachment, the conscious cultivation of gratitude. In a world that often feels unfair, gratitude can seem like a naive or even insulting suggestion. But in the profound context of Buddhist wisdom, gratitude, ****, is not about denying difficulty. It is not about slapping a happy face on pain. It is a revolutionary act of attention. It is the deliberate choice to widen our focus from the single thing that is going wrong to the vast field of conditions that are silently, steadfastly supporting us in every moment. It is how we water the seeds of joy that already exist in the soil of our present experience. The Buddha taught that a mind filled with gratitude is a mind protected from the poisons of resentment and envy. It is hard to feel deeply wronged by life when you are actively noticing the air that fills your lungs, the ground that supports your feet, the water that quenches your thirst. This is not a spiritual bypass, it is a rebalancing of the scales of perception. Our minds have a negativity bias, a survival mechanism that focuses on threats and lacks. Gratitude is the training that counteracts this bias, rewiring our neural pathways to also notice the abundant, often unnoticed, gifts that surround us. When nothing seems to be going our way, gratitude is the lantern that shows us we are not, in fact, standing in total darkness. There are always points of light, however small. I want to tell you a story about a woman named Lena, a musician who lost her hearing in one ear after an illness. For a year, she was plunged into a deep depression. Her musical world, her very identity, felt shattered. The unfairness was overwhelming. One day, in a moment of pure desperation, her teacher gave her a strange assignment. For 1 week, he said, you are forbidden from listening to music, or even thinking about it. Your only task is to list, twice a day, 5 things you can feel. Skeptical and numb, she began. The first day was hard. I feel the softness of my blanket. I feel the warm steam from my tea. It felt trivial. But she persisted. Day by day, her list grew more nuanced. I feel the surprising coolness of the kitchen tile under my feet. I feel the rough bark of the oak tree in the park. I feel the vibration of the subway train through the seat. She began to walk through her days as a connoisseur of texture and vibration. One afternoon, she sat at her piano and placed her hands on the wood. She played a chord, not to hear it, but to feel its resonance travel up through the keys, into her fingers, her arms, her chest. A wave of emotion washed over her. She wasn't hearing music, she was feeling it in a way she never had. A new, profound gratitude was born, not for the ear she lost, but for the body that could still perceive vibration, for the instrument that could translate energy into sensation. Her world had not gone back to the way it was, it had deepened into a new dimension she had never noticed before. Her gratitude did not erase her loss, but it built a beautiful new room in her heart right next to the room of her grief. This is the power of grateful attention. It doesn't change the external problem. Lena's hearing did not return. But it utterly transformed her relationship to her capacity for experience. It changed her perspective from one of deficit to one of discovery. In Buddhist practice, this is linked to the cultivation of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Finding happiness in the good fortune and simple existences of others, and indeed, in the simple functioning of our own being. So how do we practice this when life feels hard? We start small, and we be specific. Do not try to feel grateful for everything. That is too vast. Begin with the elemental. Before you sleep, name one thing your body did for you today. Thank you, legs, for carrying me. Thank you, eyes, for letting me see the green of a leaf. Thank the mug that held your coffee, the chair that supported you. This trains the mind to see the interconnected web of support that upholds you constantly, a web you usually take for granted. When faced with a difficulty, ask, despite this, what is not wrong right now? Is there safety in this moment? Is there a breath in your lungs? Is there a person, a pet, a memory, a single object in the room that brings a flicker of comfort? Anchor your awareness there for just a few seconds. This does not negate the problem, it simply ensures the problem does not consume your entire field of vision. It creates balance. Gratitude, in its deepest sense, is a form of humility. It is the recognition that we are not solitary islands producing our own success, but recipients of countless gifts, from nature, from others, from the efforts of strangers long gone. This realization softens the hardened heart that feels personally victimized by life's unfairness. It connects us to the whole. As we close this part of our journey, I invite you to pause and feel one thing: the weight of your body, the texture of your sleeve, the temperature of the air. And in that feeling, let a simple, wordless thank you arise. Not to anyone in particular. Just a thankful acknowledgement of sensation, of being alive to feel it. In our next meeting, we will take this open, grateful heart and see how it allows us to meet others, especially those who challenge us, with a new kind of strength called compassion. Let us return to the quiet space within. Our journey has taken us from discernment, through the gardens of our actions, to singing with our cracks, opening our palms, and feeling gratitude for the ground beneath our feet. Now, we turn our gaze outward, but with a transformed heart. We look at the people who populate our world, especially those whose actions feel like the very source of our trouble. How do we meet the person who criticizes us unfairly, who betrays our trust, who seems determined to make our path difficult? The instinctive response is to build a wall, to harden, to judge, or to strike back. But the wisdom of Buddhism offers a more courageous, more freeing path, the path of compassion, or karuna. And true compassion, as we shall see, begins not with them, but with a deep and honest encounter with our own pain. Imagine you are walking through a dense forest, and a thorn from a hidden branch pierces your foot. The pain is sharp, immediate. Your entire focus goes to your wounded foot. You might feel anger at the forest, at the branch, at your own carelessness. But what is the most skillful action? To sit down, gently remove the thorn, clean the wound, and bandage it with care. You address the pain directly, with kindness toward your own body. Now, imagine that instead of a thorn, the pain is a harsh word from another person. It pierces your heart. Our habitual response is often to immediately turn and shout into the forest, to curse the branch, to seek out the one who grew it. We focus all our energy on the external source of pain, while our own wound bleeds unattended. Compassion teaches us to turn our attention inward first. To sit with the sting, to acknowledge, this hurts. To apply the balm of self-kindness to our own heart. Only from that place of tended calm can we see clearly. We might then see that the person who spoke the harsh word is also walking through a forest full of thorns, acting from their own unseen wounds. I knew a teacher once who worked with troubled children. One boy, in particular, was a constant disruption, angry, defiant, lashing out. The other teachers met him with detention and sternness, which only fueled his rage. This teacher tried something different. One afternoon, after the boy had thrown a book in frustration, she didn't send him to the office. She simply asked him to stay back. When the room was empty, she said, softly, that seemed like it came from a really heavy feeling. Would it be okay if we just sat here quietly for a minute? No talking needed. They sat in silence for 2 full minutes, the boy tense and suspicious. Then she said, whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone in here. She didn't excuse his behavior. She didn't demand an apology. She simply acknowledged the pain beneath it. That boy didn't transform overnight. But a crack appeared in his armor. He began, very slowly, to trust her. She had seen the thorn in his foot, not just the flailing of his limbs. Her first act of compassion was to steady her own heart, to not react with matching anger. From that steady place, she could offer a moment of sanctuary. This is the profound teaching of the Buddha on compassion. It is not sentimental pity. It is the clear recognition that suffering exists, coupled with the heartfelt wish for it to cease, for ourselves and for others. The classic meditation begins with directing loving kindness to oneself. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. This is the essential first step. If our own well is dry, we have nothing to offer anyone else. From that foundation, we extend the wish outward, to a loved one, to a neutral person, to a difficult person, and finally to all beings. When we practice this toward a difficult person, we are not saying their behavior is acceptable. We are acknowledging their fundamental humanity. We are wishing for them to find peace, precisely because a person at peace does not need to act in ways that cause pain. This breaks the cycle of reaction. It frees us from being a puppet whose strings are pulled by another's behavior. So, in a moment where you feel wronged, practice this inner sequence. Pause. Place a hand on your heart. Breathe into the hurt. Silently say, this is a moment of suffering. May I be kind to myself in it. This is tending to your thorn. Then, when the storm inside has quieted, consider the other person. Can you imagine, even fleetingly, that they too might be acting from fear, insecurity, or old pain? Silently offer, may you find peace. You may not feel it fully. That's okay. The intention itself is a revolutionary act. It shifts you from the role of victim to the role of a healing presence, first for yourself, then potentially for the world. This compassionate stance is the ultimate protection. Walls of resentment are heavy to maintain and leave us isolated inside. Compassion creates a flexible, resilient boundary, like a strong, living tree that bends in the wind but doesn't break. It allows us to say no to harmful behavior from a place of clarity, not hatred. It allows us to walk away from toxic situations, not with bitterness, but with a sad, clear understanding that the other person is trapped in their own thicket. As we prepare to delve into the nature of change itself in our next part, carry this question: when you feel pricked by another's thorn, can you remember to tend to your own wound first? Can you see that the act of applying kindness to your own pain is the first, most powerful step toward ending the cycle of suffering? Both yours and, in some small way, the world's. Our path has woven through inner gardens and compassionate clearings. Now, we come to a truth so fundamental that to understand it is to be liberated from a great weight, the truth of impermanence, anicca. The Buddha declared that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. This is not a philosophical idea, it is the very fabric of our lived experience. Everything is in a state of flux. Our bodies, our thoughts, our relationships, our circumstances. The feeling that nothing is going my way is, at its core, a rebellion against this truth. It is a hope, a demand, that the river would stop flowing and become a solid, dependable road. But the river never stops. Learning to find peace on the river, to even appreciate its changing currents, is the heart of wisdom. Look at the sky outside your window. The clouds are never the same from one moment to the next. A storm gathers, rages, and dissipates. Blue sky returns. This is not a tragedy, it is the nature of sky. Our inner weather is no different. A feeling of despair is a cloud. It may be dark and overwhelming, but it is not permanent. It will change. A moment of joy is a ray of sun. It, too, will pass. The problem arises when we see the storm cloud and believe, this is my sky now, forever. We solidify the temporary into a prison. Buddhism teaches us to become quiet observers of this weather, to note, a heavy cloud of sadness is here, or, there is a warm breeze of contentment, without clinging to the sun or pushing away the rain. We learn to trust the process of change itself. I want to share a story about a master calligrapher. His students revered him for the perfect stillness of his brushstrokes, the timeless beauty of his characters. One day, a student found him on his knees in his studio, carefully sweeping up the fragments of a beautiful, ancient inkstone he had accidentally dropped. The student gasped. "Master, your prized inkstone. It's ruined." The master continued to gather the pieces, placing them gently on a silk cloth. He looked up, calm. "For 40 years, it held its form, and I appreciated it," he said. "Now, it has entered a new form. These pieces." He later took the fragments and, using gold lacquer, painstakingly joined them back together in a technique called kintsugi. The repaired inkstone was veined with delicate golden seams. He placed it in the center of his studio. Now, he told his students, it holds two stories, the story of its long unity, and the story of its breaking and repair. It is more interesting now. It teaches more. He did not pretend the breaking didn't happen. He did not mourn the loss of the old form as a final tragedy. He honored the truth of change and found a new, profound beauty in its aftermath. The gold seams were not a disguise, they were a celebration of the stone's entire history, including its fragmentation. Your life is that inkstone. The times when things go wrong are the points of breaking. Our culture tells us to hide the cracks, to mourn the lost, perfect whole. Wisdom invites us to repair with gold. To let our resilience, our learned compassion, our hard-won patience become the luminous seams that make our character more complex and more beautiful. The unfair event is not the end of your story, it is a pivot point in its ongoing flow. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is, paradoxically, a great consolation. It means no painful season lasts forever. It also means we must hold our joyful moments lightly, savoring them without desperate grip. This balanced embrace of flux is the source of equanimity. How do we practice with impermanence when we are in the midst of difficulty? We use the simple, powerful tool of labeling. When a wave of, "This is terrible and will never end," crashes over you, pause. Say to yourself, "Changing." Just that word. This feeling is changing. This situation is changing. I am changing. Feel the truth of it. Your very breath is a process of change, in and out, never the same. This practice grounds you in reality, not in the fearful story your mind is spinning about a frozen future. We can also practice conscious reflection at day's end. Look back and identify one thing that changed today, however small. The light moved across the wall. A thought arose and passed. A minor irritation flared and settled. This trains the mind to see the constant, gentle motion of existence, making the larger changes less shocking. Embracing anicca frees us to participate fully in the present, the only place where life is actually happening. We stop postponing our happiness until some future permanent fix arrives. We stop fearing that current pain is our final state. We float on the river of change, knowing that around the next bend, the scenery will be different. We become fluid, adaptable, and deeply at peace with the fundamental nature of things. As we approach the integration of all these teachings, sit for a moment with the fluidity of your own being. Feel the constant, subtle changes within you. There is no solid, stuck self being victimized by life, only a flowing process, meeting other flowing processes. In our final full part, we will explore how to weave all these threads, discernment, responsibility, perspective, release, gratitude, compassion, and impermanence, into a single, seamless garment of daily living. Let us gather all the threads we have been gently holding. We have learned to discern what is within our hands and what is not. We have practiced tending our inner garden with responsibility, and singing a new song with the cracks in our bell. We have practiced opening our palms in release, feeling gratitude for the ground beneath us, meeting others with a compassionate heart, and resting in the peaceful truth of impermanence. Now, we arrive at the practice of weaving these threads into the fabric of our daily life. This is not about achieving a state of perfect, permanent peace. That is another expectation to release. This is about building a resilient, flexible way of being, a way that allows you to walk through any weather, not untouched, but undestroyed. In Buddhism, this integrated way is the heart of the Noble Eightfold Path, not as a rigid doctrine, but as a lived, breathing wisdom. Think of a skilled sailor. She does not control the sea or the wind. She has studied their nature. She knows how to read the clouds, adjust the sails, and steer with the current. She has a strong, well-maintained boat, her own mind and body. She knows when to exert effort and when to simply ride out a swell. She respects the power of the ocean but is not paralyzed by fear of it. She is integrated with her environment, responsive, not reactive. Our aim is to become like that sailor in the ocean of our life. Each teaching we have explored is a skill she uses. Discernment is reading the weather, responsibility is maintaining the boat, changing perspective is adjusting the sails, releasing expectations is not fighting the wind, gratitude is appreciating the vastness of the sea, compassion is understanding fellow sailors, and embracing impermanence is knowing that no wave, no matter how large, lasts forever. I knew a woman who ran a small, beloved bookstore in a busy part of the city. For years, it thrived, a haven of quiet and community. Then, a large corporate chain moved in 2 blocks away. Then, a global pandemic forced her to close her doors for months. Then, as she struggled to reopen, the rent on her space skyrocketed. It felt like wave after wave crashing over her little boat. She could have, and for a while, did, see each event as a catastrophic, personal unfairness. But she loved her bookstore too much to let it drown in bitterness. Slowly, she began to apply, almost without naming them, the very principles we've discussed. She discerned, the chain store and the pandemic were out of her control, her response, her creativity, were within it. She took responsibility, she learned about online sales, curated special orders, hosted virtual reading groups. She changed her perspective. Her store was no longer just a physical location, but a community hub that could exist in multiple dimensions. She released expectations of returning to the bold way. She practiced gratitude daily for every single customer who placed an order, every author who did a virtual visit. She met the stress with self-compassion and even felt a strange compassion for the impersonal forces arrayed against her. And she remembered impermanence. This difficult phase would not last. It would change into something else. She adapted. She downsized to a smaller, hybrid space that was part coffee shop, part online portal. It wasn't what she originally envisioned. It was harder. But it was alive. And it was hers, shaped not in spite of the storms, but in dynamic response to them. She became the sailor of her own destiny. This is integration. It is not a single grand gesture, but 1,000 small, conscious choices made throughout the day. It begins with a morning intention. Upon waking, before the mind fills with the day's agenda, take 3 breaths. Set a simple intention. Today, I will meet what comes with awareness and kindness. This plants the seed of mindfulness. As you move through your day, use moments of friction as your practice ground. Stuck in traffic? Practice discernment. I cannot control this traffic. I can control my breath. Feel irritation rise. Practice changing perspective. This delay is an opportunity to listen to a piece of music I love, or simply to be still. Receive criticism. Tend to your own wound with compassion first, before reacting. Feel a wave of anxiety about the future. Whisper the word changing to remember impermanence. We also integrate through sacred pauses. Set a gentle alarm on your phone not as a reminder to do, but as a reminder to be. When it chimes, wherever you are, stop for 1 breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Look around and name 1 thing you see, 1 thing you hear, 1 sensation you feel. This 30-second practice resets your nervous system and re-anchors you in the present, weaving mindfulness directly into the busy tapestry of your day. Finally, integration is supported by community, or sangha. Share your journey with one trusted friend who understands this path. It doesn't need to be a formal group. A simple, honest conversation about practicing these principles makes the wisdom tangible and shared. We remind each other that the path is walked one step at a time, and that stumbling is part of the walking. As we prepare for our final reflections, consider this: you are already weaving. Every time you took a deep breath today instead of snapping, every time you questioned a worried thought, every time you felt a flicker of thanks for a small comfort, you were weaving a thread of wisdom into your life. There is no perfect finished garment. There is only the continuous, loving act of weaving itself, with the threads you have been given. In our concluding part, we will sit together in the quiet aftermath of this journey, reflecting on the peace that is not found by changing the wind, but by learning to set our own sails. Welcome, dear friend, to this final shared moment of quiet. We have journeyed together across a landscape of understanding, from the initial sting of unfairness to the spacious, resilient peace that can hold it. We have not sought a magic spell to make life always go our way, for that is a wish against the nature of things. Instead, we have explored something far more enduring: how to find our way through life with grace, wisdom, and an open heart. As we draw our conversation to a close, let us simply rest in the essence of what we have gathered, allowing it to settle into the silence of your being. The Buddhist teachings are not a remote philosophy, but a practical map for the human heart. They guide us back, again and again, to the power and freedom that reside within our own perception. When the world feels chaotic and unkind, we are not powerless. We have the ultimate inner sovereignty. The choice of how to see, how to hold, how to respond. This is the great gift of the Dharma. It does not promise a life without storms. It promises you the capacity to become the calm, vast sky that contains the storm, knowing its temporary nature. Look back at the person you were when you first asked, "What do I do when nothing goes my way?" That person was perhaps looking outward for solutions, for the world to rearrange itself into fairness. Now, you have been given tools to look inward. You have the lantern of discernment to see your true sphere of influence. You have the trowel of responsibility to tend your own garden. You have the musician's ear to find the new song in the cracked bell. You have the open palm to release crushing expectations. You have the grateful eye to see the myriad supports holding you up. You have the compassionate heart to meet pain, yours and others, with healing kindness. You have the deep knowing of impermanence to trust the flow of all things. And you have the daily practice of weaving all this into a life of resilient presence. This is not a finish line. It is a new beginning. The practice is the path. There will be days you forget all of this, days the old habits of resistance and complaint feel stronger. That is okay. That is human. The practice is not to never falter, but to notice you have faltered, and with great gentleness, without self-judgment, to simply begin again. Take the next breath as a new beginning. The next moment is always fresh, always offering a new choice. So, as we part ways in this dialogue, I invite you to a final, simple meditation. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes if you wish. Bring to mind a small challenge you are facing right now. Hold it lightly in your awareness. Now, one by one, gently touch each of the principles we've shared. Discernment: is this challenge wholly within my control, partly, or not at all? Just note it. Responsibility: for the part within my control, is there one small, loving action I could take? Perspective: for the part beyond my control, can I see it differently? Not as a personal attack, but as a passing weather pattern. Release: can I open my palm and let go of my demand for this to be different than it is, just for this breath? Gratitude: even in this, what is one thing I can feel thankful for right now? My breath? The chair supporting me? Compassion: can I offer a kind wish to myself for peace? To others involved? Impermanence: can I whisper, this too is changing, and feel the truth of it? Feel the collective effect of these gentle inquiries. There is no need to solve anything in this moment. Simply feel the shift from being trapped in the problem, to being present with it, equipped with a toolkit of grace. This is your inner refuge. This is the peace that is not dependent on everything going your way. Thank you for walking this path of understanding with me. May you carry this quiet confidence with you. May you meet life's inevitable unevenness not as an enemy, but as the very terrain of your awakening. May you be peaceful. May you be free. Namo Buddha.